taking three.
Going for the St. Louis now.
Oh no!
Son of a bitch.
You get your two?
Yeah.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thotgor here, of course, and today we are going to take a look at the replay, or a replay rather, in the Roon, and we are on Tears of the Desert once again. I always seem to get this map when I'm in the Roon. That doesn't matter. I mean, I love the Roon, as I'm sure you're all aware by now. That this is an amazing Tier 9 cruiser, and I would highly recommend everyone to get themselves one. You know, the German cruisers in general, I know it sucks going through the York. I understand, you know, since they buffed the York, I guess. You know, some people are saying that it's still pretty crappy, others are saying it's not as crappy and make it work, but, you know, player preference on that one. But once you get to Admiral Hipper, I love my Admiral Hipper. It's my favorite Tier 8 cruiser at this point in time. The Roon is amazing, and the Hindenburg is going to be quite fantastic as well. So it's a great line, especially in the later tiers. But anyway, in the Roon, Tears of the Desert. Oh yes, one more thing I need to mention. As I'm sure some of you, maybe all of you are aware, today is St. Patrick's Day, so hooray, hooray. So that does mean that this evening I will be partaking in the consumption of certain liquids, and tomorrow I may not be in the best of conditions to do a video. I may just want to sleep all day. So that being said, tomorrow's video is a toss-up. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. Really depends on this evening. But anyway, just wanted to throw that one out there as well. Alright, now we can get into the battle. So you can see Tears of the Desert. Now this is an interesting map, right? We've got this island chain kind of in the center of the map that shoots down from northeast down to southwest, right? We can see it's consisted of three in the north, three down on the side, so a little 6 islands there, and it makes it interesting gameplay here at the beginning, especially for this when you spawn on this side of the map, I find, because I can use those islands to sort of jet up and come behind the enemy from the east, right, shooting up to the northeast and then crossing over and going north, or well, I guess west. But anyway, I can use those islands in a destroyer, and it's fun to do. Now in my cruisers and larger ships, like battleships that I play, I do like coming down here to the I guess this is kind of southeast, this area here. But for me, I always sort of, you know, cut it off at a certain point once I stop losing the cover of the islands, especially at this early stage in the battle, because I really don't want to get picked off early, right? Even though the Roon here is amazing, it really doesn't stand up too well to, you know, shells from like Montanas, Iowas, Zumos, Yamatos. Those sorts of ships can really wreck the Roon. So I need to be careful of that. I need to be aware of it. So that's sort of why I limit myself and make sure that I've got cover nearby that I can switch to, depending as well, I guess, on how the enemy's deploying. But that's a general strategy that I use here on Tears of the Desert in a cruiser or a battleship, right? And you can see in this situation, in this case, the enemies are not really forming up at this point in time. It kind of looks like they're all sort of concentrating right now in the center of their base. Most likely what they're doing is they're just sort of grouping up, and then they'll decide to push out from there, right? That's probably what's going on, but we can't necessarily count on that. I turn bow into it. We're going to start closing some distance here, because right now where the enemies are positioned, at least the enemies I see are positioned, I can easily get in behind some cover. Now, granted, what I'm going to be doing, the cover that I'm using, right, is actually the mountains straight ahead of me, right? So they are really far away. I'm counting on those mountains blocking enemy shots, and that's how I'm using it as cover, right? Yeah, it's I don't know, I guess you could call it as cover. Yeah, that's what I'm going to use it as. Anyway, the range on the Roon is really quite awesome as well. I do enjoy it. I mean, it's a standard range. Well, not standard. It is fairly one of the longer range cruisers at this tier, but I really enjoy it, and especially with the armor piercing. I mean, you can see that I'm pummeling away or pounding away at this Tirpitz off in the distance, and the armor piercing is doing consistent damage, which is really nice. And it starts, you know, really. At least I start really noticing it when I'm fighting American battleships especially. I just find the North Carolina and the Iowa are incredibly easy to take down in the Roon. Only if, though, those ships decide not to fire at me, right? I have to be in a good situation where the Iowa or the North Carolina is focused on another one of my allied battleships while I'm just pounding away at them, because the rate of fire on this Roon is really spectacular as well. You can basically see at this range I'm firing in at this Des Moines, and my shells are landing just as my next salvo is reloaded, and that's getting fired off. So pretty good rate of fire here, so not too shabby at all. We can see an enemy destroyer off in the distance. We caught a close glimpse of them there. Luckily, I was maneuvering around, so those torpedoes don't hit me. I'm sure they would have hit me, though, if I would have continued in a straight line. So the value of always maneuvering around, right? We do have the Des Moines to contend with. We can see the aircraft carrier, but I'm not gonna go out on a limb to get that guy. I'm more concerned about these ships over here that are just beyond that little island. You can see I've got one of them targeted now. It's another Des Moines, right? And they have he has an Ibuki with him as well. So now I'm facing off against two Des Moines and an Ibuki, which is, yeah, it's kind of, a big deal. We're going to have to play it a little safe here. Suddenly we do see North Carolina pop up as well, so we're going to have to deal with that guy. But I'm not going to, just try and close the distance, get in there and just duke it out with them. That would be terrible, because if we do look at the minimap, you can see where my allied ships are deployed, right? And most of them are deployed behind me, kind of supporting me in this position. If I just go out there forward into the enemies, they probably and most likely are no longer going to be able to support me as effectively. So I'm just not going to do it. So, just kind of keeping with my allies, turning in, using the range of the Roon to my advantage here, taking shots off at any ships that present broadsides. Not necessarily focusing any one target, which maybe is something I probably should have done, but any ship that presents a legitimate broadside to me, I'm going to take a shot off at that ship. I'm turning back around, right? With the gun placement on the Roon, the two turrets on the stern, it's really the strongest part of your ship, right? So it makes it really easy to play defense in this ship. Like, you can always have the enemies to your stern, and you still have 66.66 repeating percent of your firepower on the enemy, right? So it's fantastic. It really makes it a really good cruiser. And again, I know I'm going on about the Roon, how great it is, but I just really enjoy it. Don't know what that staggering is there, but sorry about that. On a side note, I probably am going to get another solid state, and what I'm going to do with the solid state is I'm just going to have ships on it, because right now the way I have it is ships and the recordings are all happening on the same drive, and it can be cumbersome at times. And I think that might be what's resulting in some of the shuttering. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Looking around, enemy torpedoes are passing by, right? We just lost an enemy ship. I think it was our aircraft carrier, so that kind of sucks. But in return, the enemy aircraft carrier is gone as well. We also managed to take out one of the enemy destroyers, so that is fantastic. We don't need to worry about that guy anymore. There are still two more enemy destroyers, though. We need to pay attention right when they pop up. We don't want them surprising us and just destroying us. That would be terrible. We do see an Iowa in the distance. I'm firing again in on this Tirpitz, and I am kind of going out on my own right now. We can see an Thotgor there as well, so I'm not willing, and you can see I'm turning away. I'm not willing to get too close, but I was willing to just sort of get in there and get a few more shots off, because for the most part at those few minutes there, I wasn't really able to get a whole lot of effective firing going because the enemy was making use of cover, so it just wasn't happening. I did manage a nice little hit on the Thotgor on that first salvo. The second salvo that went in though, and I just shot too high, right? We could see it just sort of went through the smokestack. Didn't do a whole lot of damage there, but whatever. We're switching back over to the Des Moines because I was really concerned about these Des Moines. Now, I have an advantage over the Des Moines as long as I keep the Des Moines at range, because I have a greater range than it, right? I really don't want to get close in, because you can see, even at range like this, I'm easily able to get citadels on that Des Moines, and you can easily take down a Des Moines in a Roon without problem, just as long as you keep the player outside of your outside of his firing range. Once the Des Moines comes into your firing range, you're going to have a whole lot of problems. So just keep that in mind when you see Des Moines, and just take a look at what the maximum firing ranges of the Des Moines. I'm not 100% sure myself, but I know that the Roon outranges it, and the Ibuki might, although I think the Des Moines and Ibuki might have about the same range. But anyway, in the Roon, as long as I can keep him outside my range, don't necessarily have to worry about that Des Moines. What would happen though, if to make me have to get in there and worry about him, is if my team just decides to charge in there, right? Depending on what ships decide to charge in there, I might have to charge in there as well to support them and to potentially save them or have them save me, vice versa, right? So there is that option as well. Now on the mini-map, the majority of my allied ships are now on the west side, right? And you can see that we are steadily pushing forward. Not making too many moves all at once, but we are steadily pushing forward and really supporting each other at this point in time. So it's really nice to see. In the north, we have a small detachment of allies up there, a cruiser, a battleship, and the destroyer, who are sort of harassing the enemy from that direction as well. And it is really working out in our favor to kind of corral the enemy all around their base, right? And then we can kind of swoop in here and start picking them off, start getting kills. Like this Tirpitz. This Tirpitz has really gone out on a limb right now, so a lot of my team is focusing down this Tirpitz right now. Now I'm one of them, right? It just makes sense. He's right there. Other members of my team have gotten him on fire already, right? So the best thing for me to do is just keep firing my armor piercing and doing whatever damage we can possibly do to him to get him gone. And there he goes. One of my allies finished him off. Fantastic. So that is great, because now we can start focusing as a group on another target that presents himself. Suddenly we do see the Des Moines pop up, right? Another Des Moines. I'm pretty sure there were two in this battle. The player narrowly managed to avoid some torpedoes, so kudos to the player. But unfortunately to the player, he's well within my range. I've got some good cover going on right now, and as long as I can just keep pumping shots into him, we should be able to do some significant damage to that guy. Work him over for the team, because I'm going to continue up here to the north, right? And I'm going to try and circle around the enemies with my friendly destroyer. I also have some cruisers in behind me as well, some friendly cruisers. It kind of looks like they're making a play up here as well. But my idea was, to just shoot at the enemy from multiple angles, because we do have a good hold on that west side right now with that push. We're taking a few losses, right? We just lost a ship, but we've only lost 2 ships so far, the aircraft carrier and one of our battleships. The enemy has lost a few more ships than that, and in fact they only have 1 more destroyer remaining, so that is not too bad at all. And here we go, the Des Moines. So I've kind of caught the Des Moines off guard, right? Because you can tell he was in a maneuver against some of my allies over there, and now I've got fire going in on him. My angling on this guy isn't so great, but the Des Moines luckily turns right into some of my shots, and this is fantastic. And obviously, the player had to make a pretty hard choice: turn into my fire or turn into my allies' fire. And my allies have some battleships, so instead Des Moines turns into mine. And you can see, right, the effectiveness of the Des Moines fire. Once he comes in, or once a player comes into your range, you start taking hits, you start catching on fire, damage starts adding up quickly, because the Des Moines has an incredible rate of fire as well. There we go, Des Moines is gone. Fantastic. We see some enemy battleship off in the distance, well, or rather in Iowa off in the distance, and another enemy cruiser. We can see in North Carolina we do have their last destroyer spotted, which is great as well. I'm kind of circling in. You can see my allies and I were all behind the cover, right? We're using this cover to our advantage. We're circling in and around it, picking off enemy ships, so that when we do eventually make the push into the enemy base, hopefully there'll only be a few enemy ships remaining, and those that are remaining will be at a position so they won't be able to effectively fire on us. That's the hope here anyway. Enemy destroyer pops up, so immediately, yes, we are going to start putting shots into this guy. I do not switch over to high explosive, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to shoot at the gearing for a whole very long, right? And I wanted to keep my armor piercing loaded up, because I definitely know that there's battleships and cruisers off in the distance that would be I'd easily be able to get some citadels on if they present a nice broadside to me. And as well, I mean, the way that this cover is working, it's just not in my favor, right? I've got the island right in front of me. Obviously this is working to the favor of the gearing player, but my allies are all over this guy. I mean, if I could have, I would have continued to fire at him as well, because you want to get the gearing gone. That is a really good destroyer. Need to get it gone. Anyway, one of my allies does manage to get the kill, so that is fantastic. We see the Iowa, the North Carolina off in the distance. They still have an Ibuki about. And what is that other cruiser? Is that a Mogami potentially? So we still have a few enemy cruisers and battleships remaining. But now is an excellent time, right, to start getting into the enemy base here and start capping this out. You can see that my northern push of my destroyers up there and the cruiser, that went incredibly well. I mean, they did lose the cruiser, unfortunate, but the destroyers prevailed. They're now circling in and going to help us cap. And you can see as well that they managed to hold down enemies up there in the northwest, right? That were just totally unable to participate in an effective manner of the defense of their base. Now my ships, my allies, are just sort of piling into the enemy base, and we're going to start capping this out. So the Iowa just took a huge hit. He is almost gone. So just a few more rounds in from me, hopefully, and that's going to finish this guy off. You can see the Iowa's engines are disabled. I find that crazy. I've seen that a lot more now as well since the new patch and whatnot. You actually see battleships' engines getting taken out. I don't recall that happening a whole lot. I mean, granted, I don't play a whole lot of battleships, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but just something I noticed. Ally gets the kill in the enemy Iowa, so that is fantastic. Good show by that guy. I run into someone, yep, sort of required every battle. I got to run into someone. So there we go. We got it out of the way. Pretty late on, but still we got it out of the way. I'm no longer in the enemy base, and when I was watching the replay through, I kind of got angry at myself because I really could have went in there to the enemy base and did some, got some pretty good points, but whatever. We're doing some decent damage to the enemy North Carolina, and there we go. Battle is over. We managed to cap out enemy base for victory, and that wasn't too bad at all, and it was really good teamwork and really good strategy from these just random people, but at the higher tiers these battles do happen. So finished third overall in the team, which isn't too bad. I think it's about 87,000 damage, not too shabby at all. Walk away with credits and experience, so fantastic, because it's all going to count towards the old Hindenburg, which I can't wait to get. That will be something fun. Anyway, that is today's video. Like I say, tomorrow's video is sort of a throw up. Whether or not it's going to come out, I'm not 100% sure, but we'll play that one by ear. Leave any comments you have for me in the video comment section below. Love reading those and responding back to them. Hit the old like button if you did like today's video. Hit subscribe if you are not a subscriber. And as always, I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day.